I hope you're all doing super well. I want to start off by showing you some of the murals I've painted around my house because we're going to paint a new one today. So this is the first one I painted a few years ago. There's a loud car. 1 second. This is the first one I painted in my kitchen. It's of a bunch of little oranges, and I think it's just really joyful and fun, and it was fun to paint. I want to probably redo it at some point, but for now I'm a fan. And then the next one's right over here, so follow me. And then this is the lunar moth that's in my dining room. It's my favorite mural I've ever painted. I love the colors and the little feelers and just how the whole thing turned out. Painting this one and the one in my kitchen really just changed the whole vibe of my house and made it feel more like a home and more like my home. So I'm planning to eventually do even something small, but I'm going to paint a mural in likely every room in my house. But next on the list is the art room. So if you want to follow me, I'll show you the wall and how we get started and just the whole process. So stay tuned. So this is the wall we're going to paint. It is one of the first walls you see when you come in the house. It's upstairs, but it's pretty visible from the front door, so I'm a little nervous to paint it, but hopefully it turns out really cool. I'm planning to paint a really big happy frog, like right in this area here, with some strawberries and bats and mushrooms for good measure. Just make it something magical and hopefully really bright and pretty. I was thinking about what I wanted to paint up here. This will be my third attempt, but the other things I was painting were, I don't know, kind of sad or dark, and so I thought doing something really happy would just be a better match. And I remember this frog I had when I was a little kid who was the happiest, sweetest little guy. He would let me pet his little head and was just a lovely friend. And I've always thought of frogs as being a sign of happiness and good luck since then. I don't know what the official symbology of frogs is. I should probably look that up. But I always think of them as being just all around a good omen. So having one in the house just seemed like a good idea. So the plan is to go and sketch out my idea for the painting, and then if it's not too late, we'll map it out and go from there. So stay tuned. When I was a kid, I really wanted to be an illustrator. I spent hours drawing and trying to make pencil to paper work, and it just didn't for the longest time. And I'm better now, but it took about this long for me to realize that I'm actually a painter and that fits me a lot better. I found being more free with the paint was just a better way to get my emotions out and have some more fun. Although I do still love drawing, and I do use it to map out all my paintings first. That way I have a better idea of what I'm going to create. Even if I don't follow it exactly, at least having the drawing done first helps a lot. I thought it might be helpful if I did some paint swatches as well. That way I just had a reference for the colors I was going for and could kind of mix and match. If I wanted to change paint later, I can make sure everything looked good together without having to put it on my actual mural. So doing this, I think, is just a fun way to map out the colors that you want to use. So I have a nice kind of tealish blue and a good frog green. The frog I'm painting, or the type of frog I'm painting, is called a dumpy frog, which I thought was the best name for a frog. And they all have this kind of light green, bluish color, and sometimes some light pink. And I thought that they're just a really pretty frog, and that's the one that we're going to paint. So I'm mixing up all my colors here, kind of playing around with the different shades I wanted, as I knew I wanted kind of an in-between color as well, and a light pink. And I plan to stick to these colors, but deviation pretty much always happens when I'm painting, so this is more of a guideline than a rule. And then I thought I would combine my sketch and my paint swatches and just make it kind of aesthetic, and that way it's also easier for me to keep everything together and I don't lose part of it. And so I'm using this washi tape my friend got me from her trip to Japan. I've been wanting to use it for a while, and I thought this was a good chance to break it out, and I liked the yellow with everything else, so I just stuck it onto my drawing, and then I used this as my reference to paint my entire mural. So it worked out pretty well. I did change a few things, but overall it's pretty much this drawing. It's been a couple of days. I got kind of busy with work and I just got back from running some errands and it's really hot out. I think it's like 95 here, and 2 days ago it was in the 50s, so it's pretty toasty today. But I felt inspired, and so I wanted to show you the next step in doing the mural, and hopefully we're gonna get it all done today. So what I like to do is make kind of a compass. That way I have a frame and a guide on how large to make my mural, and that way it's not lopsided. I should measure, and I probably could measure, but for this I kind of like to just eyeball it. So we have a few things here. I have a, what's this called, a thumbtack, and I have a pencil and some string. So I'm going to measure out how big I want my mural to be. I'm thinking maybe around like the 4 foot, 3.5 foot range. I want it to be pretty massive, but also kind of just in like this area. I've done a few attempts before of painting previous things, so there are some lines already on the wall, but I want to do it again with fresh eyes just to make sure it's exactly where I want it. So first, we're going to eyeball the center. So I think right here is about center. Let's just try it. So next I'm going to measure out my string and then tie it to this guy and then tie the other end to my pencil and just draw a big circle. So easy peasy, and then we can mix our paints to get started. So I got the string attached and I think I want it to be about to here. I think that'll look good. Seems like a good size, and I'll go a little bit past here, so I might paint this as well. Yes, it's perfect. It's not maybe the best circle ever, but it's gonna work great. So on to the next step. Yay! Just removed the thumbtack and I got kind of ahead of myself. The next step is actually just to sketch everything out. I'm gonna use the drawing I did as my reference and take my time and just make it look how I want to. I'll do probably the frog in a lot of detail, but everything else I'll just get the general shape. That way if I need to move things around as I'm painting, it's easier to. So that's the next step, which I'm going to start now. Hopefully I have enough pencil left to do that, but if not, I'll just go get another one and be back soon. So I'm going to start doing that and we'll go from there. I always gotta get a chair because I'm not very tall, and having one around helps a lot. So first thing I'm going to do is just hold up my frog drawing and just map out the size I want my frog to be within this circle that we drew. I start with the rough basic shapes. It's a little tricky to see here, but I like to start with the face, and then from there just draw the arms and the back and the legs, and that way I can see if anything is disproportionate or if I need to change anything. But I went kind of slow and I erased any lines I didn't need, and I ended up liking it. And now it's time for a break. Didn't make it very far, huh? Yeah, you got good. Okay, so I got my frog drawn. I think he's gonna look pretty good. And I have the strawberries kind of outlined and the mushrooms roughly outlined, but I just really want to start painting, so I'm gonna do that. I decided to add some additional colors, so I have a bright pink and purple, and then the biggest brushes I could find. I used some smaller brushes later, but to start, the big ones really help just get the paint on the wall and take up space. I went ahead and mixed up my colors, and I made a slight mess, but nothing too bad. Alright, now it's time to put some paint on the wall. So I went ahead and mixed up my blue and green and some white together to make my nice base green shade for my frog. And I tried to stay within the lines I made, kind of like a coloring book. And I kept adding more blue and more white and green to get varying shades. So I wanted some areas to be a little lighter and some to be darker to mimic the shadows and highlights of the actual frog. And doing this, I think, just gives it a bit more life. It's also a fun way to paint. I try to keep the belly area pretty light and then added some more shadows and highlights around the little toes with my blue. And I blended everything out as best as I could. Then I added some more pink and then used the blue color and some green to make the darker areas like around the mouth and to kind of do the shading around the arms. And that's as far as I got. Alright, I woke up pretty early to try to finish everything. So I have my frog mostly done, and add in the strawberries and the mushrooms on top, and fingers crossed we get it done today. So to start my strawberries, I'm going to do a red base and then add in the shadow and highlight as I go along, adding extra dark shadow underneath my little frog's hands. And then I went ahead and painted 3 strawberries. They're all about the same size, and I want them to be big to balance my frog so that he has a nice little habitat to hang out in and some friends. So I'm just gonna go and paint kind of a rough shape on all of them, and then I did end up painting these maybe 6 times, but I did the same base every time. I was just messing with the seeds. And then to paint the leaves, I wanted to use just the straight green color. I'm not adding in anything else, it's just the color right from the tube. And then I was able to add in my highlight and shadow. I used the white mixed with green to make the lighter areas, and then kept the from the tube green to make the darker areas. And that ended up working out really well and was easy to duplicate. And then this is my favorite part, is painting the eyes. It just makes it come to life and have character and personality, and you can give it different emotions. And for my little buddy, I wanted him to seem friendly and just like a happy frog. So this is my progress with the eye and the strawberries. And then I'm going to go ahead and paint some more strawberries and vines around the frog. I wanted to paint a little one above him, and then I painted one kind of on the side, just to give it some more whimsy and put him in a really magical environment. Okay, it's getting there. I think I'm gonna put some leaves maybe down in this area. Then I have to do mushrooms all up around here, and maybe some more like tiny strawberries here. But I like his little face and the eyeball, and I'm pretty happy so far. So we're gonna keep going and see where it ends up tonight. So there were some extra bits, extra leaves I wanted to draw around here and here that I wasn't totally sure about. So I'm just kind of sketching them in watercolor with my big brush just to see if I like the placement. So I can always erase it with just water, which is awesome. But doing this really helps me map out what I want to do. And then if I like it, I can go back in later with acrylic and kind of jazz it up. But yeah, this is about how it looks so far. Ooh. And if you got drips, just wipe them and it's fine. So after getting my leaf placement where I wanted to, I went ahead and gave them all the same base green. I also added some tendrils and swirls around them of the vines, and I went ahead and I actually used a dark watercolor green to make all of the veins in the leaf. I thought this would be the easiest to blend out, and also if I made a mistake, it'd be easy to paint over. So I did use that for all the leaves, and I made them with a bit of a dark edge, trying to make it kind of a hybrid between a cartoony style and a realistic style. So I used a medium green and I blended out all of the edges with that dark watercolor. Then I added in some highlight and kind of tried to lighten some of the lines, giving it a nice kind of rounded effect. And then I used some of that watercolor mixed with a dark green on the center of my leaves, and then blended that in with the lighter bits. I just went over it a few times and then started to add more depth to the actual veins, making sure that they were nice and crisp. So I went over it with them one more time with the watercolor, making sure to keep my lines as straight as possible. And then I went in with some white and added some light highlights. I used my real strawberry leaf for my reference the entire time, and notice how it really caught the light on all the ridges. Okay, I've got more done. I'm very excited. Have some of the leaves here. Still working on the strawberries, but they're pretty close. And the frog is pretty close. I have a few more details to do, like his mouth and some more of the pink detailing. But next, I really wanted to try to do the mushrooms. So that's the plan for tonight, and we'll just see how far we get. This was my first attempt at the mushroom painting. So I went ahead and just made the basic shape and then tried to blend everything out as best I could. It ended up getting pretty late and I started to lose steam about halfway through, but not too bad. So I ended up not liking my original mushroom shape that much. I wanted to do something with a bit more depth to it and just make it more whimsical. So I drew over my original mushroom and started painting any of the areas that fell outside the new drawing with white. That way I could make my new shape nice and easy. Then I filled in the bottom with white and started to kind of map out where the inner mushroom ruffles were going to be. And so I used my nice acrylic purple, and I started pretty light at first and then went in darker and added more detail as I went along, as well as blended as I went along. So I used my tiny brush to add some of the wrinkles and ruffles and just added some sharp detail, especially in that front intersection. And then of course some more dark along the edges as well. And then this is how the first one turned out, and I just repeat the same process on the second one. For my strawberry flowers, I started by tracing them out in white. It's kind of tricky to see, but I wanted to get the basic shape of the petals before I filled it in with some green in the center. And then I kind of dragged it out and made it go around my original white drawing of the flower, and then filled it in with some more green detail. And then blended some white in because I felt like it was a little bit too green, and then just added some sharper detail with that same dark watercolor. And I just kept blending out and adding highlights. And then I added a few little dots to the center just to make it really pretty. And then the final form of the strawberries. I did a lot of versions of this, but I liked this method the best. So I added in some white highlight, and then used red to make the seeds. And then added some white around the red to give it more of a highlight. I think my seeds are upside down, but after doing it so many times, I am okay with that. So then I used some more green and did the finer detail in my frog's face. Just wanted to sharpen up his mouth a little bit so you could see it from further away. And I also did some more details in his arms and feet as well. Then I erased all my pencil lines. And it's done! And the final step is to add in the light switch plate. And that's my frog! Yay! Okay, drum roll please. We are finished! It did take a little longer than I expected it to, but I also spent longer on this painting than I have any other painting as far as I can remember. So, all in all, I'm actually pretty proud and really thrilled with how it turned out. It's big and bright and just everything I'd wanted. So I wanted to thank you guys for hanging out with me on this process, and I hope you enjoyed it. And until next time, bye-bye!